Hi everyone, welcome back to another Kids Cook at Home cooking class. It is August, school is right around the corner, so we thought for today's Kids Cook at Home class it would be really fun to make 3 kind of fun, unique, and of course nutritious lunch boxes so that when you guys are starting off your school year, you have some fun ideas to kind of mix up those lunchbox routines so that you of course can stay fueled throughout your entire school day. Now I know I have baking ingredients in front of me right now, and that's because our first recipe that we're actually going to make today is our whole grain banana oatmeal muffins. And one of those muffins is going to go into one of our lunch boxes that we'll put together here shortly. These muffins are also great for a quick breakfast. So it provides whole grains, it's going to give you some protein, there's bananas in it, so you're getting a little bit of fruit in there too. But again, we're going to make one batch of these muffins, let them bake, and then I'll show you how we're going to assemble these 3 fun and unique lunchbox ideas that you guys can take and bring to school. Alright, so first things first, you guys always know we got to wash our hands. So we're going to wash our hands under warm water with some soap for 20 seconds. And then once that's done, we're also going to wash our produce. So I have 3 bananas. Even if yours are a little riper, that's even better. But always wash all produce under running water as well. So we'll go ahead, do that, and get started on making these muffins. So our first step in making these muffins is to first get all of your ingredients out. One thing that I love to do when I'm baking, or if I'm making a recipe with quite a few ingredients, I always like to measure them out ahead of time so that when I'm ready to bake or ready to cook, I can easily add those ingredients wherever they need to go. So there's kind of 2 big steps to making these muffins. We have our dry ingredients and then we have our wet ingredients. So our first step here is going to be adding our dry ingredients to a large mixing bowl. So here we have some whole wheat flour. We have some packed brown sugar. We have our Quaker oats. We have baking soda and baking powder. And nuts are optional, but I'm a huge fan of walnuts, so I'm going to go ahead and add some walnuts in here too. Alright, so that's all of our dry ingredients. So now just take a spatula and mix that all together really well. Alright, so now our next step is going to be adding all of our wet ingredients to a little bit of a smaller, medium-sized mixing bowl. So I have my milk. We have some melted butter. And then I also have 1 egg. And of course, remember, if you're cracking the egg right here and now, be sure that you're washing your hands. Because anytime we touch raw eggs or raw meat, we want to be sure that we're washing our hands. And then the last wet ingredient that goes into our bowl is going to be mashed bananas. So I'm going to go ahead, peel these bananas, and then I'm just going to take a fork and I'm going to mash them, and then I'll add them to my mixture. So now that all my bananas are in there, I'm just going to go ahead and either use a whisk and a fork to be sure all my wet ingredients are mixed thoroughly. So now all I have up here is my cupcake tin, and I've already put liners in it. If you don't have liners, be sure that you're spraying the pan so that your muffins don't stick. And then all I'm going to do is actually put my wet ingredients into my dry. Make sure it's very well mixed. We don't want any flour or oats not to be fully covered. So we want to be sure it's very well mixed. And then we'll go ahead and we will fill each cupcake tin about 2/3 of the way full. And this should make plenty of muffins to last you through, your lunch week, or else even add some for a quick, easy breakfast. All right, so it might be a little hard to see, but at least now you can see that it's all mixed together well. So you can take a spoon, otherwise sometimes if you take a 1/4 cup measuring cup, that can be a good scoop. But we're just gonna go ahead, fill these about 2/3 of the way full, and then my oven is preheated to 400, and these will bake for about 17 to 19 minutes. All right, so the muffins are in the oven. Remember, those are in there for at 400 degrees for about 17 to 19 minutes. Once they're done, or once the timer goes off, I'm just gonna check them. One of the best ways to check is to actually use a toothpick, and you can just insert it, and if it comes out clean, meaning that there's no uncooked batter on it, then you know that they're cooked all the way through. So once they're cooked through, I'm just gonna leave them on the stovetop for just a little bit to cool. But until then, we are going to start on our lunchbox idea number 1. And as we get to lunchbox number 2, which is where the muffins come in, you'll see that I'm adding one of those cooked muffins in there, and we should be good to go. But let's get started on these fun lunchbox ideas. All right, guys, welcome back. So we're gonna go ahead and do our first lunchbox. But of course, we're gonna do it multiple times today. Let's wash our hands. And then we are making some kebabs today as kind of part of the main entree for our lunch. So we do have some fresh vegetables that we do need to wash. So we're gonna go ahead and wash our sweet peppers and then our cherry tomatoes. All right, so now that my vegetables are washed, the first thing that we're going to do to make these kebabs is cut our sweet peppers into chunks. So think about a 1-inch square. So that's how we're gonna chop our sweet peppers. Again, you're using a knife, so be sure an adult's with you, and we're always cutting carefully. Let's go ahead and chop some peppers. So as you can see, these are fairly good sized chunks, but that's because we want them to stay on the skewer. I'm not gonna chop up all of the peppers, but what you can do is you can cut these into slices, and they'll be great for another snack after school, or else you can add them to another lunchbox. But for now, I'm gonna go ahead and clean up my space. So set these extra peppers aside, put them back in the fridge, and then we're gonna go ahead and assemble these kebabs. All right, so we are ready to assemble our kebabs. You can, of course, do these in any pattern that you like. But for these kebabs, we're gonna use some wooden skewers. And of course, you can always cut these in half to fit in your lunchbox, because that's probably gonna fit a lot better. But we're really gonna be adding some sweet peppers, which we've already cut. We've got our cherry tomatoes, which are washed. Add some layers of turkey or ham, or any other deli meat that you enjoy. And then we're also going to be using some string cheese. So just because the only thing I haven't cut or prepared yet is pretty much my string cheese. I have about 2 string cheeses here, and I'm just gonna cut them into about 1-inch cubes so that they fit on the skewers nicely. So I'm just, about this size or so. But we will go ahead and start assembling. I'm just gonna get some deli meat. I'm using turkey today. And basically we're just gonna fold the turkey onto the skewer to help it stay however it works. But, all right, so let's just start assembling. All right, so there's one. Go ahead and make as many as you need. Like I said, you can go ahead and cut down your skewers, and if you have a really young kid, you can also cut off the sharp end as well so that they don't have that while they're at school. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a few more, and then we'll show you guys what else we're gonna add to this lunchbox to really complete the meal. All right, so I have made my 2 kebabs, and I'm just gonna use a cutting board to kind of show you guys what all would fit in my lunchbox that I would make. So I have 2 kebabs, and then just as a recap, you know, anytime we're talking about building a better lunchbox, we're wanting to think about, does it look like my plate? So remember, my plate is a great way to show all the different foods and food groups that we should have on our plate, or most of them on our plate when we're thinking about a meal. So on our skewers or our kebabs, we do have our peppers, we have our Crystal Farms string cheese, so we've got dairy, we have our Dietz and Watson turkey, or you can use ham if you like ham too, so we've got some protein on there. And then of course our tomatoes are also adding as another produce item. So we're still missing a few other food groups though, right? So one of them is whole grains. So what I would do is I would take some whole grain crackers. So these are our thin wheat crackers, the original flavor. So we can add some of those in a baggie on here as well. We don't have any fruit yet, so this is a really convenient option. 100%, you know, apples in here. I know that they have a variety of flavors, but we're really looking so that we don't have a ton of added sugar. So we'll add one of these go-go squeezes to our imaginary lunchbox. And then one thing that I love when it comes to crackers or even vegetables is hummus. So hummus is actually made of chickpeas or garbanzo beans. So this is a really convenient way to add a fun dip for your veggies, which are on your kebab, or else just your whole grain crackers. But just adding about a spoonful or so of hummus is a great way to add that flavor back into your lunchbox. One of my personal favorites is the Sabra hummus. They have the original flavor, which what we're using today, but you can also find different other flavors that they have as well. So I'm gonna just go find a bag for our crackers, and then once that's out here, you guys can really see that we have all of our food groups covered. We've got fruits and vegetables, we've got whole grains, we've got our protein from our deli meat, and then of course we have our dairy as well. So you're gonna be fueled all day during your school day, and of course be ready for, I'm sure, a snack or at least dinner when you get home from school. So this is lunchbox number 1, and then we'll now move on to lunchbox number 2. All right guys, we are on to lunchbox number 2. And if you remember, we made those oatmeal banana muffins at the very beginning. That is gonna be our whole grain that we are including in this lunchbox. This one's a little bit easier prep as well. The only thing that we have to do to get started is wash our hands. And I'm going to also wash my apple. I did take a shortcut and I bought some pre-cut celery. So if you're buying normal celery stalks, of course, wash that up and cut it into about 4 or 5 inch slices, but I took the shortcut today. So I'm gonna wash my hands, we're gonna wash this apple, and then I'll show you guys how to build this really simple, I'm gonna call it a breakfast theme when it comes to a fun lunchbox idea. All right, so I went ahead and just grabbed this cutting board so you guys can see exactly what's going in the lunchbox at the final strand. Got my apple here, and then I'm just gonna grab a bag so that I have my apple slices. So the first thing that we are going to do is just cut the apple. And like I said, I'm gonna put them in this bag here so that for kids, they don't have to worry about cutting an apple when they get to school, or if they have a loose tooth, they maybe don't need to bite into a whole apple. So I have an apple cutter here, and we're just gonna press this down. So I'll pull off the sections, put them in our bag, and you don't want apples to get brown as they're kind of sitting throughout the day. So there are a couple different tricks that you can use. One of them that I love to do is I'll just add a little bit of lemon juice in there. Otherwise, you can actually soak these in just a little bit of salt water for about 5 or 10 minutes or so before you add them to your bag. And that can also reduce the browning as well. All right, so we've got fruit checked off the list. So that's our first thing in there. So I'm gonna set that aside. Our next thing that we're gonna do is, I'm always a fan of celery and nut butter, but for a lot of kids who have a nut allergy, we always wanna try and look for an alternative. So we are actually gonna be using some sun butter today. Now, sun butter is actually made from ground sunflower seeds, which are one of my favorite things to munch on. So if you like sunflower seeds, I guarantee you guys are gonna love the sun butter. So I already have some celery that is sliced. So I'll go ahead and I'll find a bag for that. And then what I'm also going to do is just take a small Tupperware and I'm gonna add some sun butter in there. So that way, if you're like me, you can use celery to dip into the sun butter, or I love apples and sun butter as well. So that's always a great alternative too. You do have to mix it up just a little bit. And adding about 2 tablespoons or so in there should be plenty for the school, that lunch. Okay, so we've got the sun butter over there. Got one more bag for the celery. This won't brown, so you can just put some celery sticks in your bag as well. I love using reusable bags, so if you have that, that's a great option. Just be sure your kids don't throw them away. All right, so that's plenty. And of course, modify your portion sizes based on how much your kids eat at lunch throughout the school day. So we are good with that. Then of course we have our muffins. So as you can see behind me, I do have quite a few more, which will be great for breakfast. You can also freeze them as well, but otherwise you can toss these in a lunch for some other time during the rest of the week. So I'll probably just wrap that in maybe some plastic wrap, or else, if you have another baggie on hand, you can put that in there too. And then, of course, as we talked about with our first lunchbox, we're always trying to complete the My Plate. So if we do our checklist, we have fruit and vegetables, we have our celery and our apples. We do have some whole grains with our muffin. Of course, our sun butter is gonna, add some of that healthy fat in there and a little bit of that protein, but we're also missing some dairy and more protein. So that's where Greek yogurt, such as this Chobani Complete, there's a great amount of protein in there, and it also counts as a serving of dairy. A lot of really fun flavors, so you can, the kids can choose whatever flavors they like. So again, it's extremely simple, but that is just a really fun, simple idea that you guys can use for another, lunchbox idea to check off another day of the week. So I'm gonna go ahead, clean up here, and then we'll show you guys our third and final lunchbox idea. So for our third and final lunchbox inspiration, we are gonna make some cracker stackers. So to me, it's kind of the new fun take on a sandwich, right? A lot of us get sick of sandwiches, but here we're still having a lot of the same components. So we're getting our whole grains, we got our protein, the dairy, the vegetables, and the fruit, but we're gonna make some fun things that we will help assemble at home, and then once you get to your table and you're eating lunch at school, you can go ahead and assemble your cracker stackers there. So first things first, the bottom of the cracker stacker has to be the cracker. So we have some whole grain crackers here. And I'm just gonna use some Tupperware. So I'm gonna kind of build it in here, and then you guys can assemble it when you get to school. So add in some crackers. They'll fall a little bit right now, but that's okay. Next, we're gonna do some cheese. So I just have some Crystal Farms sliced cheese here. This is actually a variety pack, so if you have people in your family who like different kinds, I know that there's cheddar in here, some Marble Jack, and even some Swiss. So I'll do about 2 slices of cheese, and they come in squares. And again, save yourself some dishes. Just use your hands, and we're gonna fold each of these into 4 parts. So we'll add in our cheese. And then, so now we've got our whole grains, we've got our dairy. Next, we are going to grab our protein. So we have our Dietz and Watson turkey breast here. And again, we're just gonna kind of put, chunks of it together so that they're easy to add to crackers. Or if a kid just wants to eat them by themselves. A little bit more. Perfect. So this is the main ingredients for your cracker stack. We've got our whole grains, we've got our Crystal Farms cheese for our dairy, and then our Dietz and Watson turkey for our protein. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add my lid on that, and that'll be part 1 of our lunchbox. Next, we need to add some fruits and veggies. So I'm going to take the peppers that we had cut up for our first lunchbox, and I am just going to put them in a baggie, and that'll be a really great, easy side for lunchbox number 3. And of course, if you guys are anything like me, you need a little bit of something to dip it in. So again, we are going to use some hummus. So this is that Sabra original hummus, but you can also try other flavors too. And then of course, just to keep things extremely simple, of course we love fresh produce, but don't forget that canned produce, such as canned peaches. I think this is a mix of peaches and pears. As long as they're in 100% juice, this is a really good, convenient option for a way to add fruit to an easy lunchbox, or if you guys are out on the go as well. So that's it. We're keeping it really simple. So I'll go ahead and give you guys a quick recap. I'm gonna put all 3 of my lunch boxes that I made out here today, and then we're gonna do just a quick few tips on lunchbox food safety. All right guys, so that is a wrap. We have our 3 great lunchbox ideas right in front of us. But before we signed off for today, I wanted to just share some food safety tips for utilizing your lunchbox. And of course, mom and dads, this goes for adults who bring a lunch to work as well. So first comes first, always have a nice insulated lunchbox. Our first and main priority is always to be sure that any foods that are served hot are still hot, and if they're served cold, they're still cold, just as if we were at home. Now, I like to choose foods that can just stay cold. It's a little bit easier than trying to keep foods hot until the lunchtime. So one of the best ways to keep foods cold is to have an ice pack or an ice cooler like this one. Always, when you get home from school, guys, bring that back into the freezer so that it's chilling overnight and can be used the next day. But that will really be sure that all the foods that need to be stayed cold, such as our lunch meat, our cheese, our yogurts, things like that, are really staying cold so that we don't get sick. So we really want to be sure that everything that needs to stay cold stays cold. My second tip is to be sure that you guys clean out your lunchbox frequently. So don't leave food in there, don't leave snacks in there. The best way is when you get home from school, take out everything that you maybe didn't eat, or if you have any trash in there, things like that. And then just take a rag with some hot soapy water, and you can use that to clean the inside of your lunchbox. So thanks so much for joining us for this kind of fun special edition of Kids Cook at Home. We wish you guys the best school year ahead. We hope you guys have a lot of fun with all of your teachers and your friends, and of course you're learning a lot. And we hope that you guys will join us for our next Kids Cook at Home class, that you can find all the details online at celebratemore.com/kidscookathome. And of course, if you guys took pictures today, be sure to have your parents share them with us on social media using the hashtag KidsCookAtHome. And we'll see you guys next time.